Cyklo woke up startled, gasped for air, and looked around to regain his bearings. He found comfort in the fact that he was on his supply ship and let out a sigh of relief. Again, he thought. This recurring dream had been happening on and off for the past week. A girl, alone on a distant forest world, with ice-blue hair standing next to a 12-foot-high Vantoran wolf. The same questions kept running through his head. Who is she? She wasn't Vantoran. How was she able to stand that close to a Vantoran wolf? Is she a star child? Can't be. They don't exist. Cyklo, the Vantoran, was on a supply run, a normal, boring supply run, traveling alone through the cold depths of space on the outer limits of the Sovereign Alliance, where there's no one around for light years. 2 days from Vantora to the closest trading outpost, Bogar, then 2 days back. You wouldn't want to stay any longer than you need to on one of those outposts. Violent, decrepit, and full of hawkers yelling what they got for you is better than the next guys. At more than 2 centuries old, Bogar is the biggest and more popular marketplace on the outer limits of the governed worlds. A chaotic paradise for some, a necessity for others. Cyklo was the latter. As he drew closer, the Vantoran warrior finally saw the city-sized ring, floating alone in a sea of stars. Other starcraft had already docked on the outer edge of the outpost, either ready to buy, sell, or trade. This, of the 25 outposts scattered around the known universe built for necessity, was the closest to his home world. Why is one of Vantora's best warriors doing a supply run? Because he was well known, respected, and feared in most of the Sovereign Alliance worlds, no one would sell him short. Cyklo was a solid 6'9", 142 kilos without his armor on. A long-distance flight called for a more homely attire. He was far more comfortable in loose pants and a t-shirt. He wasn't fat, but he had a solid frame with a lot of muscle mass from years of protein and high gravity, a trait of growing up on the harsh ice world, his home, Vantora. He had a thick brown beard and a shaved head with circuitry tattoos running from the top of his head and down to his neck. You wouldn't want to be on his bad side in a dark outpost alley. Cyklo, although impressive in stature and physique, looked tiny beside his best friend and supply run companion, the great giant white wolf shadow. The 12-foot-high Vantoran wolf was asleep behind Cyklo's chair, looking as comfortable as the warrior himself, who had his feet up on the control desk, looking out of his panoramic viewer, which ran around the whole bridge of the ship to give you an unobstructed, stunning 180-degree view ahead. The ship was about half the size of an Earth-ocean liner. It was big but designed to be handled by a very small crew or a solo operator. The beautiful modern age of 24th century tech. The ship docked at Bogar with an unexpected clang and a jolt, causing Cyklo's feet to fall down from the comfortable position.
This outpost needs a serious overhaul.
He informed his companion, who woke up startled. A male voice came through the ship's intercom.
Buying, selling, or trading?
The man sounded overworked.
Prepaid collection.
Cyklo answered.
Yeah, righto. You got a confirmation number there?
I'm sending it through.
Cyklo knew the procedure. He already had the file open on his onboard control desk. He slid it up the screen and it chimed, indicating it had been sent.
There it is. Give me a sec.
The line fell silent. Cyklo knew from his previous supply runs that the dockmaster was looking for his order. It wouldn't take that long. He looked over to Shadow and scratched the top of the white giant's head.
Not ready yet, sir.
The voice was different this time. Years of living in the harsh ice world of Vantora, whether it be a battle against another clan or simply trading at an outpost, Cyklo had developed a keen intuition for deception.
What happened to the other guy?
To most, this wouldn't be a big deal. People wouldn't even bother asking. They just want to get their prepaid supplies and get back to their home world. But the warrior had seen too much in his life to know something was amiss.
Oh, he's at lunch now.
Cyklo decided to play along.
That sounds good. How long are my supplies going to be?
Shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. If you did want to grab a bite, we'll have your order loaded into your ship.
The voice on the line responded. Cyklo realized the speech pattern. Solar Navy, perhaps. He'd had a strange feeling ever since he left Vantora 2 days ago, not to mention the dreams of the blue-haired mistress. Something was coming for him.
Well, I guess we're having lunch.
He said to Shadow. After about an hour, full and satisfied, Cyklo made his way back to his ship. He heard voices and footsteps in the distance. He hid to investigate. Standing at the edge of a wall in the darkness, Cyklo poked his head out to see a team of 6 men in black and red armor leaving his ship, blasters in their leg holsters. Their slicked back hair and military precision were all he needed to see to confirm his suspicions. Solar Navy, but oddly they had the wrong colored armor. After a few moments, the men disappeared into the vast loading area of the outpost. Cyklo ran quietly back onto his ship through the open loading bay door and into the huge storage area that even made the warrior look tiny. Pallets full of stock, metal refrigeration units and everything else on his supply list. He tapped the touchscreen on the wall nearby, closing the bay doors, ran all the way up into the bridge of his ship and flopped down into his chair. He looked over at Shadow, sitting and panting.
You didn't notice the men on our ship?
Shadow tilted his head.
Let's get out of here, Shadow.
Deep into their journey home, Bogar now but a distant blip behind them, the travelers were relaxed and settling into the home run. Cyklo in his driver's seat, feet up on the control desk, gazing out into the sea of stars. Shadow curled up on the floor behind him. The white wolf woke startled and growled. Cyklo could sense something as well. He turned to his companion and patted his head. The supply vessel began to shudder when suddenly a huge starcraft flew overhead, dwarfing the Vantoran ship. The center of the giant above opened up and slowly lowered down towards the supply ship. Shadow growled again.
Can't outrun them. It's a Class 24. Looks like old Solar Navy.
His voice was deep but calm. Cyklo always spoke to his best friend more than any human. It took a lot to make the legendary warrior nervous, being kidnapped by some renegades that obviously stole an old military ship was no need for concern.
See that up there?
He pointed to the Solar Navy insignia on the side of the ship above, a faded blue circle with a hexagon 12-point star in the center. It had been partially scratched off and replaced with a roughly painted red wolf head and an RS next to it. Cyklo didn't recognize the call sign.
Let's see how this plays out.
Shadow grunted in acknowledgement. Cyklo turned back to the front of his ship, put his feet back up on the control desk, and put hands on his head to relax and wait for the ship to be boarded. Cyklo's ship shook as it finally docked inside an old Solar Navy vessel. He used his foot to open the loading bay doors at the rear of the supply ship. He didn't want to leave his seat until necessary. A display screen popped up on the windshield of the Vantoran ship. He saw 6 men in red and black armor with blasters. They were confused at first as to why the door opened. They were expecting a fight. The men began running in through the loading bay, looking around for anyone inside, blasters up and locked into their shoulders, ready for action. Finally, they reached the bridge of the ship and saw the great warrior and his giant companion ready and waiting to be taken in. Cyklo turned around slowly, still seated in his chair with his hands on his head.
It was the wrong day to wear sweatpants.
He stood up from his chair. The sheer size of Cyklo and Shadow caused the men to take a step back. The men gripped their blasters even tighter. So tight, Cyklo could hear the sound of the men's gloves squish. The men were all clean-shaven, with slicked back black hair.
They actually look like Solar Navy.
He thought, still unable to work out who or what the hell was going on. A man in an expensive-looking black business suit walked out from behind the 6 men, hands behind his back, walking with purpose. They parted ways for him.
So, This is the great Vantoran warrior.
It was more of a statement than a question, to show Cyklo he knew who he was. The sharply dressed middle-aged man looked Cyklo up and down.
You are the perfect brute. You'll be a champion for the people. I had other preferences, but the chairman insisted.
He turned and walked away. Cyklo's eyes began to get heavy. He took 2 steps forward, fell to his knees. He couldn't keep his eyes open any longer. He heard a thump from next to him. Shadow was down asleep. Cyklo felt so tired. Eventually he completely fell to the ground. He was out cold.